Hi. So, this is the 7th lecture in my series, goodness me, on my Wise EMPoweR model. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bonnie Meekins and I'm a UK-based dance movement therapist. So I'm going to move on today in this lecture to probing and challenging, which is something that sometimes can feel very uncomfortable to therapists, and certainly shouldn't be used too early on in therapy. I said last time that most of these aspects of the therapeutic relationship are actually applicable throughout the therapy. This is perhaps one that needs to bide its time and be used very, very carefully. But not all insights are useful. Sometimes they need a bit of testing out, and this is where the therapist can help a bit, or the group. Here's an example of that. One of the therapists said, if you're very sad, you don't seem to be acting sad right now, which was totally new. I mean, I knew I was angry yesterday because I was really sad. So here's someone who worked out that sometimes what's actually going on is sadness, and they might be able to say they're sad in a group situation, a therapy group situation, but still hold on to the facade of something else. So helping the individual to develop what a person-centered therapist might call congruence, or being real. And I'm going to move on to what that then helps the client to do, which is evaluation. So the challenges support the client's natural tendency there is a natural tendency to reevaluate experience and to ground it in everyday life, so to start making changes outside of the therapy room. And that's accompanied by a reduction in symptoms quite often, and a spatial and temporal distancing from the traumatic material, and a reclaiming of the body. So someone said in my research, I used to get a lot of flashbacks and voices coming back and saying it was my fault. I'm in control from him now. I can control him if he comes back. I can turn around and say, get lost, not part of me anymore, can't hurt me anymore. And I'm just going to move on from there. We're whizzing through now. So what comes then is this sense of releasing. In traumatic states, this can be experienced as a laying to rest of the abuse, in this case, from my research. And in contrast to burial, this is the temporal and spatial distance, no longer here and now, no longer in my body. It's also in the therapy cycle, the process of ending. So there's a letting go, both by the therapist, crucially, and by the client or group. And it sometimes is accompanied by a sense of mourning. I feel I've got to a stage where I've got to let go and get on with my life, but other losses might come up and be re-experienced at this time, and with help and support might also be laid to rest. So this is what one of my research participants said. I was having a really bad do at home, and I could actually see him in his coffin in the lounge, and I lay next to his coffin. This was someone she had lost, not the abuser, someone she cared about. And I spoke to him and stroked him and told him that I was letting go and everything, I really cried and really grieved for days and days. And I've felt better since then. This process of releasing is also associated with an emerging integrated self that's no longer associated with that burial. I was more in touch with that me that was now getting more chance to grow. I should say, by the way, that growth metaphors were really, really prevalent in what these participants said to me, and I did not feed them that metaphor. It was as if the little seed of my life, which was me, and had been kept down by all this stuff on top of it, was beginning to break through. And metaphorically, it's like being higher up the spiral, the spiralic process of forming that I've talked about in earlier lectures. Higher up with opening vistas and a sense of distance. It's like being tuned to how I used to be before the abuse, but moving on with that broader horizon. Now, releasing the past often opens the way for a future and the sense of an ongoing journey. I know there's a future for me. God knows when it's going to happen, but before I felt I didn't have one. Now, that's a very important statement, because when people don't feel there's a future, there's a risk of suicidal ideation with that. So we can conclude that this person no longer probably felt suicidal. And the next one, I don't know exactly where I'm going, but I'm not as frightened of the thought of moving forward as I was. So the next lecture is the last one in this series, you might be glad to know, when we'll be discussing all of this model in its entirety and linking it back to other literature. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and goodbye for now.